Thank you. Hank, I was actually thinking that if you went 15 minutes, I would just stand up here and say, thank you, we need to stay on time, it's been a pleasure.
Didn't work, did it?
No. So, on the road ahead, in a day that's had a significant portion of its time devoted to mindfulness in the present, I want to take you to the past. We think about the past in order to prepare for the future while we attempt to live meaningfully and purposefully in the present. So let me invite you for a moment to think back to your ancestors of 100 years ago and how they might have thought ahead to your life. Could they have imagined how you communicated, how you got transported, how you lived, how you dressed, the relationships you had? They wouldn't have known very much, and whatever predictions they would have made might have been wildly inaccurate. But they would have wanted something good for you. Now you may have, as I have at times, gotten very critical of parents, grandparents, but I also, as much as I can, like to think of what they bestowed on my life. And I would say, for many years it's been growing in me an awareness of a life purpose that I have, which is to do my part to advance human development. And I do that primarily through two activities. Outside of my family, I have a son and recently got married. But in my professional life, Practical Recovery is the company that I'm here in San Diego with 2 rehabs, a sober living and outpatient services. And that's a place through 40 employees to bring an approach to recovery to people who can afford to pay for services. Am I out of camera range?
Back.
Back would be better. And through Smart Recovery, this family that we belong to. So let me now ask you to think ahead to Smart Recovery in 100 years at 119. And what could we predict they will be thinking in 100 years? One thing I'm confident they will be thinking about is, how are we going to celebrate the 120th anniversary? That would be a big question. And I suspect that they will have just spent nearly a century trying to figure out how to find an executive director as competent as the first one. I'd also like to thank Robb, who's the man behind the successful one.
Oh, wow.
I know you have done many unsung efforts on behalf of Smart Recovery, and I do appreciate it, as we do.
It's been a pleasure.
I think they would also think that we were very fortunate to have had the founding president that we have. Joe, where are you? Back there. And I think they would look back at the turning points that have occurred. So I'm going to predict a few. Now, we got Richard Phillips in the UK. That was the turning point. Reed Hester isn't here, but the fact that that publication has occurred, that study occurred, that we will, with luck, shortly be listed in the National Registry of Evidence-Based Practices and Programs. This is the place the public goes to find out what's evidence-based treatment. We'll be the first abstinence-based mutual help group, and the second mutual help group, the first one being moderation management, interestingly. And there won't be any other groups there. So when someone might say to you, now you've got to wait till sometime in 2014 when we actually get there. But when someone says, well, there's no evidence that this works, you can say, au contraire, actually, you can look here and you'll see that we count, and maybe some other groups that you had in mind actually aren't listed there. So we can be very proud of that. And last year, 2012, I predicted that by 2022, we would have in the US about 5,000 meetings, which would be enough meetings to be comparably available to other support groups, particularly 12-step groups. And that at that point, the recovery environment in the United States would change. We have recently considered some innovations that we will check out that may improve the speed with which that can occur. But at some point, whatever year it is, we are on track to have comparable availability, and the general public and everyone will know that smart recovery is an option. That will be a new landscape in which we will then turn our attention to the quality of our meetings, the diversity of our meetings, the ways in which we can stay in line with our fundamental purpose, but then also reach in different directions that would be good for us to reach. It's harder for me to see the turning points after that. It will be in every treatment program in some way. We will be mentioned. And this possibility of living a purposeful and meaningful life, not dragged down because we act on whatever pops into our minds, or we believe whatever we think just because we happen to have it pop in or happen to think it, that we actually can take charge of our lives and lead meaningful, purposeful lives to the extent of our abilities, that we will hold out support and methods to bring people along with us. And on behalf of Smart Recovery, I have this pattern of choking up at these talks now, which is not something, when you have what looks like a near-death experience, although last year I assure you it wasn't, it really was just indigestion. But, all right. On behalf of Smart Recovery at 119, thank you for your persistence and innovations. Thank you.
Hank, we have plenty of time for you.
Yes, please. We're not supposed to close for the 20 minutes.
Okay, how am I doing? Don't get too close to that mic. I'm doing okay. I have a little show and tell. I'm going to try to have it be more show than tell. It is that time of the day when... I'm okay?
Do you have just
Nothing.
changing your
I'm
slides?
just going to talk.
There.
That kind of time of the day when perhaps standing and stretching would be good. So I'm going to ask you to stand and stretch, to stand up. But don't stretch so hard that you can't sort of stay at it for a moment. Really kind of be stretching. And while you're stretching, I want you to have this thought. I am stretching. So have that thought, I am stretching. And is there anyone who does not find that to be a true thought? If you don't find it to be a true thought, so yell out, I don't find it to be a true thought, or something. Everybody's with me. That's a true thought. Now I want you to notice your body, from the tips of your fingers to the tips of your toes, what it's like for your body to be stretching. And is there anybody who can't tell the difference between the thought, I am stretching my body, and the experience of your body stretching? Is there anybody who can't tell that difference? Okay, so great. You can put your arms down. And what I hope that you will begin to notice is even true thoughts are not the experience. And if one were to mix those two things up, there might be trouble. They're just not the same thing. So let me invite you to be seated. And to engage for a moment in what I would call a little centering activity to be more present with where you actually are. Now I know there's all kinds of controversy around mindfulness meditation and all this stuff, and I may use words that people may later object to, and that's okay, but for the moment kind of just go with me, if you will, because what I want to do is to say a few words, and the purpose of those words is to help you all be more centered and present in this moment. Now, why would you want to do such a thing? Well, the chances are, if you're more centered and present where you are, you have a greater chance to benefit or make use of whatever else is there with you. That's the only point. So let me begin by inviting you to notice the way the chair and the floor are supporting your body. There's a certain set of sensations in your back and hips and feet that you can notice. And what I want you to notice is you could relate to those experiences by trying to change or alter them. For example, you could move around. I could have asked you in the beginning to sit more straight or to get more comfortable, but I didn't. I just asked you to notice what was there. And another way that you could contact it is to simply contact it just as it is, without any efforts to notice or change it. I'm going to have to drink something or I'm going to. Now the thing about the sensations of support of your body is they're fairly static. So let's try something that's more dynamic. The coming and going of your breath. If you focus for a moment on that, you'll notice how your chest will rise, fall, and your belly will move a little bit in tandem with the rising and falling of your chest. And again, there's a couple of ways, or probably a lot of ways, but there are at least a couple of ways that you could contact that experience. The first one is with efforts to change or alter the experience. You could hold your breath for a few moments. You could make yourself breathe a little more rapidly. Or you could contact the experience simply as it is, here and now, noticing the air coming and going from your body. Now, in addition to your breath coming and going, your thoughts and images also will come and go. And by thoughts, I mean those kind of radio programs inside your head, blah, 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 blah. And by images, I mean anything with a picture. It could be a still picture, a moving picture with sound, any of those count. So if you have thoughts and images, which I'm betting you do, again, those two ways of contacting them would be available. One would be to contact thoughts and images while making efforts to change or alter them. And another would be contacting them simply as they are, here and now. And if you do that, you'll notice that you're often invited by thoughts and images to go traveling, to leave here and now for then and there. It's a little like sitting at a taxi cab stand. You're all seated, so we'll have you sit at a taxi cab stand. Cab pulls up, door opens, there's a thought or an image inviting you to get in and go travel. And yet, if you remain seated, just noticing the thought or image simply as it is, in a while, the door closes, the cab leaves, another arrives, another door opens, and there's another thought or another image inviting you to get in and go travel. And just as before, if you simply remain seated, noticing the thought or image simply as the thought or image it is, in a while, that door closes, that cab leaves, another arrives, and so on and so on. And perhaps what's most interesting is, if you should find that you have gone traveling to some other place or time, you could immediately return to this moment and this place simply by choosing to do so. And if you made that choice, you'd make available a whole variety of experiences, including the way the chair and the floor are supporting your body, the coming and going of your breath, and the way the air of this room feels on your face. Now, as I have been speaking, how many of you have found yourself becoming more relaxed? And you may have noticed that I never said anything about relaxing. All I talked about was being present with your bodily sensations and your thoughts and your images simply as a bunch of bodily sensations and thoughts and images. Well, when you contact them that way, there's nothing dangerous about them. So, of course, we do relax, which is a little indication of how often we have gone traveling to some place where things do seem dangerous, and then we're all ready for action. If you look around this room, there's no lions or tigers or bears here. We're not in the middle of a freeway with a bunch of speeding cars. You'll notice I didn't say anything about closing your eyes. If you make contact with this room simply as it is, there's nothing dangerous here. So you do relax. Relaxation is not the point. The point is being present, here and now. This little activity, noticing first static sensations, then dynamic sensations, then thoughts and images as thoughts and images. They're dynamic the way your coming and going of your breath is. And noticing that if you should inadvertently go traveling, you could return, is a little activity that I just call being centered. Let me contrast this with something that I might call meditation. Something for you to meditate on. Now, in this case, I will invite you to close your eyes and to notice for a moment the coming and going of your breath. And when you have that kind of continued sense of being in this moment and being in this place, I'd like you to consider what for you would constitute the big picture of your life. Some of you have seen these television sets that have a big picture and a little picture down in the corner. Well, you could think of that little picture as the little picture of the moment, and the big picture as what you would like your life to be about. And if you took all of the things included in that big picture and made a symbol of them, in medieval times, people, I think, did this with a crest. They have a family crest that was an insignia, a little indication of what they wanted to make important in their lives. So I'll ask you to see if you can generate such a little symbol that symbolizes the things that you would have be most important in your life. And then, in your mind's eye, extend your arm with your palm facing you and project onto your palm that symbol. And then look down your arm at all the behavior that you could be doing that fits with that symbol. Now, some of that behavior will include making the most of the moments that remain in this conference. So for just a moment, look down your arm and see what those behaviors might be. And literally meditate. Take seriously what you would be doing for the remainder of this conference that lines up with the big picture of your life. And when you are ready to return to this room and this moment, just open your eyes so that I will know. Now, is there anybody here in this room who thinks they can't tell the difference between becoming centered in the moment and meditating on something? Great. Any questions?
You need to do that on YouTube.